Assalamualaikum. We are third year students of Finance and Banking from Bangladesh University of Professionals. We have a course named Audit and Taxation, and as a part of this course, our faculty member instructed us to interview any of the leading officials related with similar interest. Aiming to that goal, our group gathered here to interview respected Deputy Commissioner of Tax, Mustaba Ishtiak Ahmed sir, who is currently assigned to Tax area-7, Circle 135. So with his permission, we would like to start our session today. Assalamualaikum sir, can we start?
Assalam. Yes, you can start.
Thank you sir for the permission. So we already know from our textbook that the title Deputy Commissioner of Taxes functions under the National Board of Revenue. So our first question is, what are the National Board of Revenue or NBR's essential functions? Can you give us an overview?
Well, National Board of Revenue or NBR, actually this is a governmental organization and this is the only organization that collects direct and indirect taxes. So as the organization is named National Board of Revenue, we can understand that the main objective is to collect direct and indirect taxes. But as an entity, if we consider the overview of National Board of Revenue, it is a controlling authority of two cadres, that is BCS Taxation Service and BCS Customs, Excise and VAT. These two departments are solely responsible for collecting direct and indirect taxes. As an entity, National Board of Revenue is the controlling authority and also policy. They are framing policy for collecting different types of taxes. And as a controlling authority, National Board of Revenue mainly observes the collection process and many other departmental process for collecting these direct and indirect taxes. So first of all, if we consider National Board of Revenue as an entity, we find that our chief of NBR is our honorable chairman, who is also the honorable senior secretary to the government. He mainly monitors the overall activities of this department, and if we consider as a controlling authority, that I already have told you that there are two departments. The controlling authority is to make promotion and transfer posting policy or policy making, collection monitoring, that is how a taxes zone can collect their revenue or how a taxes zone can fulfill his target for collecting these taxes. So mainly as an organization, the two main functions is that collection, transfer posting policy and policy of taxation to improve collection process. These are the main objective, I think.
Thank you sir. So our next question is, what type of work people or employees at NBR have to do? Like officers?
Yeah, thank you. So many, some answers already I have given in our first question, that as NBR is doing policy making activities and controlling activities, so the people who are working under NBR, they also do that types of activities. That is, the person who is working under NBR directly, he just simply do the monitoring process of collection and also some administrative task. And in our field level, that is customs department and tax department, when we are working in our field offices, we are directly involved in collecting direct and indirect taxes. And when we are working in NBR as an entity, that is some officer from us, they are posted in NBR and they are called second secretary or first secretary or member. They are doing some policy making activities or some administrative activities. And at the same time, when these officers are posted in field level offices, that is taxes zone 1, taxes zone 2, or large taxpayer unit, or the unit of customs, excise and VAT, they are involved directly in collection process, that is they are collecting direct and indirect taxes. So I simply want to make it clear that NBR, when NBR works as a controlling authority. That is, this is a whole monitoring process that NBR monitors all field level officers throughout the country. And when NBR is working a simple entity, so inside its organogram, they simply make some policy making process, or they do some administrative work. This is posting or promotion policy, like these types of tasks.
Thank you, sir. And from our class lectures, we came to know that NBR is an administrative income tax authority. But we also came to know that the post of Deputy Commissioner of Taxes has both executive and judicial power. So why is that?
Well, that's a very interesting part for a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, that he is playing a role as executive, at the same time he is playing a role as a judicial part. Actually, this department is called quasi-judiciary department. Quasi-judiciary department means when a department is not directly involved in judicial service, but they are doing some judicial task. They are working with following some law under the Bangladeshi Parliament, which is passed by Bangladeshi Parliament. So this is our law. This is called Income Tax Ordinance 1984. That is 1984, 2002 edition. And this is also called Income Tax Manual Part 2, 1984. So according to this law, the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes mainly tries to collect direct and indirect taxes. Actually, as for executive part, a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes is responsible to run a circle or any other field officers. When a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes is working in his circle or any other field officers, he has to maintain some administrative task over taxpayer and over his staffs and support staffs. At the same time, a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, when he is doing revenue collection with in accordance with this law, he is doing as judicial activities. So this is called quasi-judiciary service. I can give you an example that a taxpayer submitted his return to a circle. A Deputy Commissioner of Taxes signed the return and gave him acknowledgement slip. This is executive part, because this is his regular duty. A taxpayer always has the right to get back his acknowledgement slip or any other certificate or any certified copy. But after submitting the return, the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes may audit this return, whether there is any anomalies or not. If the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes finds that there are some gap between his income, real income and the return income, he can make it audit. He can make some notices for hearing. He can call the taxpayer. He can ask any explanation, and the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes tries to prove it that his judgment is correct. And finally, after hearing, the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes give a judgment and gives a new demand that this he has to pay, the taxpayer has to pay some additional tax demand. This is judicial part, because the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes makes some additional tax demand in accordance with this Income Tax Ordinance 1984. This is judicial part. When a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes gives some service to the taxpayer and maintain his field offices, we can call it executive part. And when the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes applies these rules and laws of Income Tax Ordinance, we can call it judicial part. So at the same time, this Deputy Commissioner of Taxes plays these two parts. That is, I think this is a very vital role for a officer to execute his activities.
Thank you, sir. So following the previous question, so what are the principal duties, the other duties of a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes?
Actually, this is the post of Deputy Commissioner of Taxes is the most efficient part of Income Tax Department. I think already you have learned many things from Income Tax Ordinance. In Income Tax Ordinance, you will find that everywhere it is mentioned that if DCT is satisfied, or if DCT is do it, if DCT thinks fit. That is, the whole law is based on the activities of Deputy Commissioner of Taxes. So we can tell that all activities in field areas are the activities of Deputy Commissioner of Taxes. But in specific, I can say that mainly collection and assessment, collecting revenue and assessment new demand of tax. This is his main task. As for example, in collecting tax collection, a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes always collects advance tax in favor of Section 64. He must have collect tax with the return in favor of Section 74. Area tax or tax against current demand. Every types of tax he has to collect in every now and then. And for assessment process, when a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes finds any gap, that there are some mistakes or concealment, he has to send notice to the taxpayer. He calls hearing, he makes some assessment. After assessment, the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes sends some additional tax demand, and after sending this demand, he tries to collect this additional demand of tax. As for administrative task, a Deputy Commissioner of Taxes always maintains his field offices, his circle offices. So when he maintains his circle offices, he has to do some administrative tasks.
Thank you, sir. So there is a statement in our book that the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes plays the role of middleman between the taxpayers and the tax authority. Can you please explain this statement to us?
This is a statement, I think, but this is not a quotation from our law. A books can be written with different quotations or different comments, but I do differ. I do some differ from this comment, because actually Deputy Commissioner is the part of tax authority, and this is very vital part. So Deputy Commissioner of Taxes always do his activities with negotiating taxpayers, and this is the part of activities of the authority of tax department. So what is middleman? Middleman is sometimes he is doing some activities with taxpayers, or he is negotiating with government departments. This is middleman. But Deputy Commissioner of Taxes is directly the part of tax authorities. So he always do that type of activities which is guided by his authorities and which is explained or written in his ordinance, in his laws. So I think he is not middleman, but he is the very vital part of income tax authorities.
So thank you, sir. So what are the significant challenges that you have faced in the post of Deputy Commissioner of Taxes?
The same, our total activities is huge. This is, I think, the challenge, that we have to finish our task, which is our responsibilities. We have to collect revenues which is already targeted to us, and for fulfilling these activities, our responsibilities and collecting large number of revenues, we have to work a lot till morning to evening, even night. So I think the workload is our challenge, but we all deputy commissioners, they are very much careful, responsible, and they are liable to fulfill their duties. And I think all deputy commissioner of taxes, with this challenge, they also try to fulfill their responsibilities. And for this reason, every year the national growth of collecting revenue is increasing.
Thank you, sir. Sir, what is tax return and why do you need it?
Actually, tax return, this is a form, I can tell you that this is a prescribed form, which is where a taxpayer's income and expenditure, asset and liabilities, the information of income and expenditure, and the information of asset and liabilities are included. For there are two types of return. For individual taxpayer, there are individual tax return, and for the corporates, there are corporate tax return. For individual tax return, I have mentioned earlier that in his accounting year, that is from 1st July to 30th June, a taxpayer normally earns some income in his with some income generating activities, and after the income period of income, he has to mention his income, mentioning his expenditure. He has to submit his tax return to the tax authority. With this, he also has to include his asset, the information of asset, and his liabilities. The main objective is that the tax authority wants to inform his actual income and his tax liability, whether he pays the regular tax or not, whether he pays the actual tax or not. At the same time, the tax authority tries to understand that the asset which he is acquired already, whether he is acquired it with his legal money, tax money, or he has some concealment, that is he received such type of asset, but this asset, the income acquiring this asset, his income is not taxed already. So the income tax authority tries to understand his whole asset, liabilities, income and expenditure, and tries to determine his actual tax. So with the tax return, this is mandatory for a taxpayer, that for getting more actual information, the department wishes that every taxpayer should submit his return fulfilling these informations: income and expenditure, at the same time asset and liabilities.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, what are the most common mistakes that an SSC makes when filing his or her tax return?
If we consider an individual taxpayer, mainly an individual taxpayer sometimes makes mistake to calculate his actual tax, or sometimes he makes mistake to calculate his rebate, or as for example, the rebate, for calculating rebate, he has to percentage it by 15% to his investment, but without knowing that he already has invested his investment to Sanchay Patro, but mistakenly he did not calculate this investment, so he cannot get actual rebate. At the same time, sometimes a taxpayer purchased an asset few years back or immediate last year, but he did not mention it in his return. This is a great mistake. That is because all income or all asset which he has already acquired, he must have to include it into his return. At the same time, he has some bank statements. Also, some interest income has been accrued in his statement, but the taxpayer did not calculate it or added it into his total income. So he cannot determine his total income accurately. At the same time, he cannot calculate his tax accurately. I think these are some common mistakes for an individual taxpayer.
Thank you, sir. Sir, what are the requirements for filing for income tax? For example, bank account or TIN?
Actually, it differs from, it varies by different types of taxpayer. As for salaried taxpayer, he must have to submit his salary statement, his bank statement, and his statement of any investment if there is. So actually any types of statement which contains his income or expenditure or asset or liabilities, he must have to submit. So for example, as for salaried taxpayer, he has to submit salary statement, bank statement, or any other investment. For business taxpayer, he has to submit additionally his income statement or statement where all business informations has been included. That is, for example, he can submit profit and loss account or his asset and liabilities for business. Also, he can submit an audit report if there is, but this is not mandatory. Audit report is mandatory for a corporate taxpayer. But he can also give the statement of income or asset and liabilities he or should submit. If the taxpayer has house property income, that is, he has a flat one or more, and his source of income is house property income, he has to submit the statement of house property income, also bank statement where the income of house property has been paid, which account he has to submit that account. For a corporate taxpayer, audit report is mandatory, which is he can submit his tax return, corporate tax return along with audit report. This is mandatory. At the same time, he can the company taxpayer also submit his bank statement analysis. If there is loan, he can submit loan statement. So it differs with the system of taxpayer that every taxpayer he can submit his statement different way.
Thank you, sir. Sir, for example, I have all the documents for filing the tax return, for example, the statements. So, but I do not have enough income. So, for that reason, do I have to file the tax return?
Actually, as per Income Tax Ordinance 1984, if you collect TI number, so you have to file your tax return with the next following year. It is not important that you have income or no income, or you have income but you do not have any tax.
So, how to determine the escaping of income of an SC?
Escaping income, that is sometimes a taxpayer purchased some asset, acquired some asset, but he did not mention it in his income tax return. So, as for example, I can tell you that once a taxpayer bought a flat 50, as for example 50 lakh taka, but in his return there is no source with buying this flat by 50 lakh taka. So what should he do? He should pay the additional tax, but sometimes he did not mention this information into his return. If tax authority finds that there is a flat and this information of flat is not informed into the return, so then the tax authority gives him a notice, asks explanation, and called that this is an income with escape. As for example, a taxpayer has different types of bank statement where different types of bank transactions has been occurred, but he cannot give the proper explanation of this bank transaction. Sometimes the taxpayer did not submit all bank statements. He only submit those statements where very little transactions has been occurred. If the tax authority finds the all other his bank statements, the tax authority can determine his additional income and demand additional tax. This additional income we can call escaping income. After auditing or after with some intelligence work, if we find escaped asset or escaped income, that is we in another term we can call it income of concealment or asset of concealment. So we can determine some additional income of that concealed income, of that concealed asset, and demand him another additional tax from that escaped income. So the income which is not included into his return, or the asset which is not included into the return of any taxpayer, this income or asset, this is converted into escaping income.
To add what influences the tax rate to change?
Tax rates change. So your question, why rate is changed?
Change for different businesses, for example, for different categories.
Actually, this is economic activities or economic transactions are different. from different types of uh, person, business, or household, or different types of people. For a salaried person, tax for individual and corporate, actually the tax rate is different, because a corporate taxpayer, a company or corporate taxpayer, they can contribute to the government, so the tax rate is more. That is, once it was 35%, now it is 32.5%, and years after years it is declining. So tax rate is different because there are different types of business. For example, for mobile company, the tax rate is 45%. For cigarette company, tax rate is 45%, because their business is the business of mobile company is very well, and the rate of cigarette company is 45%. The main objective is that this is not a essential product. This is a product. This is, I think, this is harmful product. So if they can business, so they have to pay a huge number of tax. For the taxpayer of bank, they has to pay, I think, 42.5% or 40% tax for bank, because bank are doing well in corporate level. They are making good profit, so they has to pay 40 or 42.5% tax. But for general company, they has to pay 30 or 32.5% tax, because there are some policy. The policy, our policy, the officers who are framing policy, they think it is better that the corporate tax of general company, they has to pay 30 or 32.5% tax. For individual taxpayer, we find some little difference, that the threshold level is for male taxpayer 3 lakh, and for female taxpayer and taxpayer above 65 years, the threshold is 3,50,000. This is the government tries to give some benefit to our female taxpayer, even the taxpayer of senior citizen. So for this reason, taxpayer the rate of tax differs from different level to different stage, from one business to another.
What are my rights when applying for tax?
Actually, your right is, when you submit a return, this is your right that you will get back an acknowledgement slip. That is, this is a return. When you make the question of return, I want to show this return. This is a return. Here, additionally, I can tell that first of all, you have to fill up your personal information, that you will mention your income from here. When you will be a salaried people, that you have to mention some different income head in it. And this is the statement of asset and liabilities. You have to mention different types of asset which you have already. And finally, this is acknowledgement slip. So I tell you, I am mentioning it that your right is, when you submit this return, this slip, this is acknowledgement slip. That is, it is a proof that you already have submitted your return. The seal of the office has been sealed here, and it means that you already have submitted your return. So if any government authority or any income tax authority asks you that whether you submit your return or not, if you show this slip, so it is enough that your return has been accepted. So one of your right is to get this slip, and after submitting your return, if any certificate or certified copy is required for you with working any other government authorities or any other authorities, they can call you to submit your certificate, tax certificate. So if you come to the office of income tax officers and demand any certificate, the income tax authority is liable to give you the certificate or certified copy of your return or any other information, any other service which is mentioned in income tax ordinance. Everything is your right, I think.
Thank you, sir. Can you please name some rules to give a tax refund?
Tax refund. Your question is, how can you get tax refund? Tax refund the ways. If you confirm that yes, there is a refund and you will get something from the government or income tax authority, if you confirm that, you have to make an application to your respective authority. Then the authority will examine it, and after examining the refund, if the authority, that is income tax authority, is satisfied, then they will give a refund voucher to Bangladesh Bank, and from Bangladesh Bank you will get that amount of money which is refunded already. But this is a process that you have to make an application. The income tax authority will confirm it, then they will issue a refund voucher. After issuing the refund voucher, Bangladesh Bank will pay you the additional refunded amount.
What are the techniques to determine tax evasion?
Actually, tax evasion, it means you have to pay less amount of tax with the help of income tax law. For individual taxpayer, I think you can invest to the Sanchoy Patro or any other investment which is recognized by our income tax ordinance. You can get some rebate benefit. So by this way, you can pay little amount of tax. At the same time, there are some income where tax rates are less than regular tax rate. But for example, this is fisheries income, poultry income, agricultural income, or some other income. But the main important thing is that you have to prove that you really have fisheries income, you really have poultry income. You have submitted your return mentioning that you have a fisheries income. The tax authority has the right to audit whether it is correct or not. If the tax authority finds that you get some benefit, get some tax benefit mentioning fisheries income, but actually there is no fisheries income, so they can determine the regular income or with regular tax rate. So these are some ways that you have to pay less amount of tax, but tax authority, side by side, tax authority must audit that whether you have that types of income or not. Another thing, for corporate taxpayer, I think for better investment, government gives some benefit to our corporate taxpayers at the time of its inception. This is a tax holiday or some tax exemption or tax the rate of tax with reduced rate. That is, for example, a company wants to run his business. He wants to establish some factory. Lot of people will get some employment opportunity. If he applies to income tax authority will examine the feasibility of his next income or the impact of socio-economic system. So income tax authority may give him tax holiday benefit, may give him some tax exemption benefit for few years or not. So there are some ways to pay less amount of tax, both for corporate taxpayer or by individual taxpayer.
Thank you, sir. So, if there are some mistakes in my tax return and the time for submission is over, will I be penalized later on?
That is whether you already submitted your return or not.
Yes, I have submitted, but there are some mistakes.
Some mistakes. So after finding this mistake, you will submit revised return. This is called revised return. For example, this is assessment year 2020 and 21-22. If you find any mistake in your previous year, that is assessment year 2020-21, you already have submitted your return for the assessment year 2020-21. If you find that there is a mistake in case of your income or mentioning any asset, then you will mention your right income now or right asset. Then you will submit that return of assessment year 2020-21, mentioning that this is a revised return. So the only way, replacement is not accepted. That is, you replace the return from the office. No, you will, your incorrect return, or the income tax authority preserves your incorrect return, and simultaneously your revised return is also income tax authority maintains. So the system is to submit your return with revise.
Thank you, sir. Sir, what are the most common consequences of not paying tax in Bangladesh?
Actually, the department, income tax department and the government, they will do some activities to they try to motivate you to submit your return. If you do not submit your return or pay tax, and the income tax authority has the proper information, then they will send a notice to you, send some penalty, some demand note with penalty or additional tax. After that, if you do not submit your return again, they will write a letter to you. If you are a salaried person, so they will write a letter to your authority, so that you can submit your return. And finally, the income tax authority will attach your bank. So after attaching your bank account, you cannot make any transaction to your bank. Even you cannot get any money, or you cannot withdraw your any money or deposit your money to your bank account. So finally, income tax authority will freeze your bank account. Even if there is enough money to your bank account, income tax authority will will get some pay order as tax from your bank account. As for business, they have the authority to write some letter to the higher authority of business community or RJSC that this business group is not pay the tax properly or accurately. So there are some process. From at the beginning, the authority will try to motivate you to give you the letter to submit your return to pay the tax, and if several times the authority of income tax sending different types of letter, but you did not submit your return, so they will go some activities which is sometimes a punishment for you, I think. Finally, the department has the authority to file a case to the judicial magistrate, that is, we can call it certificate case. So then this is judicial part. We do not do it always, but the system is included in our law.
So, sir, typically an SSC is taxed on his own income. So, when may an SSC also assessed for the income for some other persons?
This is, I think, this is not possible, because when a person has some income with taxable already, where his income has crossed taxable limit, the person is responsible to pay the tax. So how it is possible that one person is submitting his return with mentioning his income and also mentioning another income? There is some option that a person can mention the information of asset of his wife or his children, those who have not have any TIN number. It means that his wife does not have income with taxable limit, or his minor child, the child has some asset, that is FDR or any bank account, but he is not a taxpayer, he is a very minor. So a regular taxpayer, he has an opportunity to mention the information of that asset. But when a person, his wife or any other person, has that types of income which has already crossed taxable limit, this pupil must have to collect his TIN number, and this pupil, that is this female person, has to submit his return individually. So I think this is not possible that one person, every person is responsible to mention his own income, not another with another income.
How can we learn to do our own taxes?
As a citizen of Bangladesh, and you are educated enough, I think, so you simply practice your own income tax by knowing the Income Tax Ordinance 1984, where individual parties mentioned. And after July, after budget, and at the beginning of July, National Board of Revenue publishes some instructions for personal taxpayer. In Bengali term, we can say it Return Puro Nirdeshika. So this is some guidelines, some techniques, and some explanations with the language of Bangla for individual taxpayer. At the time of at the beginning of July or August, you can collect it. Even the website of National Board of Revenue, it is available. So every July or August, you can log into their website, then collect it, download it, print it, and if you read it, I think you can get sufficient information as an individual taxpayer. And if you practice company tax, this is another case. That is, you have to understand the law of taxation with vast knowledge. But for individual taxpayer, I think this is enough for downloading for individual taxpayer Return Puro Nirdeshika, which is some instructions published by National Board of Revenue. I think it's enough for learning your own income tax.
So sir, our formal interview is over. One question that we have: if someone wants to be like a Deputy Commissioner of Tax like you, what is the process of being here?
Process. Very simple answer. I think you also know. This Deputy Commissioner of actually this is taxation. Our designation of entry level was Assistant Commissioner of Tax. So Public Service Commission (PSC), they publishes their circular in every year. This is BCS circular of BCS. So if you fulfill some very normal criteria, you will appear BCS exam before fill up your PSC form. You have to write down your choice, that is BCS administration, BCS taxation, customs, police, or any other cadre. There are, I think, 25 or 6 cadres. You can give your choice. After the exam, written exam and viva exam, if you choose taxation cadre and if you do better in your exam, you may select in taxation cadre. Why I tell you you may? Because sometimes this is not your choice, this is chance. That is, you may give your option in number 1 that BCS administration, in number 2 BCS taxation, in number 3 BCS customs, but you cannot get assurance that you will get your first choice or second choice or third choice. This is, I think, a chance that you may select for BCS taxation or for BCS customs or BCS foreign affairs or any other cadre. But general answer is that the recruitment process is through BCS examination by Public Service Commission (PSC).
So thank you, sir, for your valuable time you gave to us, and the informations were quite helpful for us. I think the interview sessions, when we submit it to our department, all other matchmates will see, they will also be helpful from that. And so we would like to actually now hand over a token of appreciation to you for your valuable participations from our team. So after that we may have some participation.
So I also want to express my special thanks all of you for your valuable questions. I also try to explain each and every question, but this is my speech are not law. I want to try the explanation of law, but if there is any mistake, the law is important. Which is written in law, this is mandatory. My speech is not explanation. My speech is not the explanation of law. I am telling my personal opinion. The income tax, which is written in income tax, that are practiced.
Sure, sir. We will provide a disclaimer about that. So
Yes.
thank you, sir, for your time, and this will be formal ending for this session.
Thank you.
So thank you, sir. And
Thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Most
sir.
welcome.
Thank you.